So essentially that pipe, which is held in place by these wires, is I've wrapped them around and secured them all around the drum there, very simply. That pipe goes all the way to the bottom of the drum, and at the bottom of the drum I've just punched some holes in it with a screwdriver, so that when I pour liquids, oil and water and all those sorts of things down inside that tube, they ooze out through the bottom, not all in one big rush, but nice and steadily, and all the liquid fat eventually makes its way to the top and the solids stay down at the bottom together with the water. So we need a way to take the oil from the surface or just underneath the surface without getting any of the fat and any of the water. So the way we accomplish this is using a floating takeoff, which is made very, very simply, and I'll show you. Here it is. It's essentially this piece of pipe here, which is going into, I'll show you in a minute where that goes, but essentially the cleanish oil, the settled oil, comes out of this pipe. This pipe comes around here. If I show you, it's just a coil on the surface. You can see some of the thick fat underneath the surface. So this is just a piece of normal plastic pipe that's got a bit of pipe insulation on it, and it's got just a couple of pieces of plumbing plumbing nuts on the end there, just to weigh the end down. So when I put that in the oil, it just floats just beneath the surface, so that the oil that's coming into that pipe, it's actually a siphon. So the oil that's coming into that pipe is taken from just beneath the surface, maybe by an inch, or not even that, maybe just half an inch. So that's a very cheap way of making a floating takeoff. You have to make sure that it does have the coil going round, because otherwise, as it's floating up and down, it will tend to point downwards or point upwards depending on its position. But a nice coil going almost all the way round there will mean that that won't happen. The reason I've taken this apart today is because, as some of you may have figured out, eventually the oil drum will fill up with a thicker fat, and it would also fill up with water if I didn't have a little siphon pump. This siphon pump here is just one that you would use for home brewing. So you pull up the top and push it down, and this pipe goes all the way down to the bottom. So when I know there's been some water gone through, I just give that a few pumps and squirt it out of that little tube. Now the advantage of having that little tube instead of having a big siphon is that it's too small, at around only 6 millimeters internal diameter, that's 1/4 inch in the US, means that it's too thin to siphon the hard fat very effectively. So when it's actually drained off all the water from the bottom after you've started the siphon, it goes down to a little can down there. When it's siphoned out the water, then it will just stop naturally when it encounters the hard fat. So the reason I've opened this all up today is because I need to take out the hard fat that's accumulated in the can over probably 400 litres, I would have thought, has gone through the system in order to make it the fat come up to this level. Because if I just stick my hand in there, you can see that the fat is very close to the surface. So I'm going to take off that hard fat and decant it into my waste fat drum. I could use a pump like that one, but because that's for my clean fuel, then I want to keep that clean and not contaminate it with all the muck that's in this goop here. So I'm just going to use a jug.